Have you ever actually wondered what's sitting inside your child's school file? I mean, from kindergarten all the way to graduation, schools are collecting a massive amount of data. But who actually gets to see it? And what on earth happens during a custody change, or say when your kid finally heads off to college? Well, if you're a family here in Maryland, understanding what's inside that student record vault and, more importantly, who holds the key to it is absolutely essential. So, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going on a little journey to demystify student privacy laws right here in Maryland. We're going to literally unlock the vault, look at the exact federal and state laws that protect your family's information, and, most importantly, we're going to give you the tools you need to take back control of your child's educational data. By the end of our time together today, you're going to know exactly what your rights are and exactly how to use them.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap for today. We'll be looking at Section 1, the Student Record Vault. Section 2, Unlocking Your FERPA Rights. Section 3, Maryland Rules and Exceptions. Section 4, Custody, Health, and College. And finally, Section 5, an Action Plan for Families.
All right, Section 1, the Student Record Vault. What exactly is an education record? First and foremost, I really want to emphasize this absolutely crucial point. School records are not public records, and schools cannot share them freely. This should be a massive reassurance to families. Your student's file isn't just something that can be requested by anyone off the street under a standard public records law. Even though schools are public institutions, student education records are highly protected and legally blocked from public disclosure.
So what actually qualifies as one of these highly protected documents? Well, legally speaking, an education record is defined as records directly related to a student and maintained by an educational agency or institution. Now, notice what this means. It doesn't mean every single sticky note a teacher scribbles on their desk is a protected record. No, it has to be directly related to the student and officially maintained by the school or the district.
To make this a bit more tangible, let's peek inside the vault. What are we actually talking about here? Well, we're talking about grades and academic transcripts for sure. We're talking about attendance logs and disciplinary files. And crucially, this vault also holds special education records and certain school health records. All of these documents live safely inside this legally protected vault, shaping your child's entire school life.
Moving on to Section 2, Unlocking Your FERPA Rights, the key to the vault.
And that key, it's FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. This is the big one, folks. It's a federal law that governs exactly how student education records can be accessed and disclosed. Because it's federal, every single school in Maryland has to follow it. It is literally the absolute bedrock of student privacy, establishing the legal framework that gives you, the family, power over your own data.
So what exactly does this key let you do? Well, during the K-12 years, FERPA grants parents some pretty incredible power. First, you have the right to inspect and review your child's education records. You can literally just ask to see them. If you spot something that looks inaccurate or misleading, you have the right to request amendments. You also get to control the disclosure of personally identifiable information. If a school flat out refuses to fix a mistake, FERPA actually gives you a formal process to challenge that refusal. And if a school is violating these rules, you have the right to file a complaint directly with the U.S. Department of Education. Basically, you're in the driver's seat.
Up next, Section 3, Maryland Rules and Exceptions. How state laws add extra security. Now, federal law sets the baseline, right? But Maryland has its own specific procedures and regulations that shape how these records are handled locally. A really great example of this is the Maryland Student Data Privacy Council. Maryland recognizes that the vault isn't just some dusty metal filing cabinet full of paper anymore, it's completely digital. The state is actively working on how student data moves through modern school technology, digital platforms, and outside vendors. So Maryland is really applying these strict privacy laws to the modern age.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is understanding the exceptions. FERPA is super strong, but it's not a 100% absolute ban on sharing. There are times when Maryland schools can actually share records without your consent. For example, if your child is transferring to another school, well, the records naturally follow them. If there's a health or safety emergency, schools can act immediately to share necessary information to keep kids safe. And of course, school officials like teachers and administrators can access the file. But, and this is a big but, only if they have a legitimate educational interest. They can't just browse through files out of curiosity. There has to be a valid educational reason.
All right, Section 4, Custody, Health, and College. Navigating the gray areas and the big handoff.
This is where families very often run into a bit of confusion. Real life is complicated, and applying these laws to unique situational hurdles requires a little bit of clarity. Let's start with custody. In Maryland, the default rule is quite clear. A school will presume that either parent or legal guardian has the right to inspect records. It totally doesn't matter if parents are separated or divorced. The only way a school will deny access to a non-custodial parent is if there's a legally binding document or a court order that explicitly limits that access. So if access rights have changed in your family, it's entirely on you to provide that updated legal paperwork to the front office.
Now, here's a rather surprising area of confusion: health records. A lot of parents just naturally assume these are automatically covered by HIPAA. But actually, if health-related records are maintained by the school, like a nurse's file or a school counselor's note, they are very often treated as education records under FERPA instead. They are securely locked inside that exact same vault we've been talking about, fully protected by those rules.
And this brilliantly illustrates the biggest transition of all, the handoff. While your child is under 18 and in K-12, you, the parent, hold the FERPA rights. But the very moment that student turns 18 or enrolls in a post-secondary institution at literally any age, they instantly become what the law calls an eligible student. Boom. Just like that, those FERPA rights transfer directly from the parent to the student. Parents are often totally shocked when a Maryland college refuses to discuss their child's grades or attendance with them without the student's written permission. But hey, that's the law. The student now holds the key.
Finally, Section 5, Action Plan for Families. Practical steps to protect your data.
Okay, we've covered the law, we've covered the exceptions, and some pretty tricky situations. Now, how do we put all this knowledge into action? So the crucial point is taking these 4 practical steps. First up, ask your local school system for their written records policy so you know exactly how to go about requesting access. Second, if there are any custody or guardianship changes, immediately file that updated paperwork with the school. Third, do not wait for a crisis. Review your child's records early. Make sure there aren't any inaccuracies, especially before a big transfer, graduation, or college application deadline. And fourth, if you ever feel like your rights were violated or data was improperly disclosed, always start by contacting the school to resolve it locally. But remember, you can always escalate to a formal FERPA complaint with the U.S. Department of Education if you need to.
Because school records can impact everything from academic services and transfers to discipline and college planning, understanding these rules is quite literally one of the most powerful things you can do as a family. Your child's records shape their future. So, now that you have the key and you know exactly how Maryland and federal laws work together to protect this information, how will you protect their vault? Stay curious, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next explainer.